Okay, so moving right along in lesson 10, this is on page 203 where it says customize and print a report. So we kind of went through all of the canned reports that are available in Project in our last video. We can also create custom reports. So that's what we're going to be doing in this section. We're going to go to that report tab and we're going to go to new report and we're going to use the drop down until we get to table. Use that. And we are going to call this report the remaining work report. Click OK. And here we go. So this is where we get to basically pick what's on this report. And I would encourage you, if you end up using Microsoft Project in real life someday, to kind of go back to this section of the book or to find some good tutorials online, because there's so much that you can do here that we can't even spend enough time on it to show. So this is our baseline here for our remaining work report. You can see it's got a table, name, start, finish, and percent complete. Well, this is for the entire video. So if we want to get more specific on this, and I'm on page 204 here, let's say we want to look at the resources in detail as far as remaining work. So when we go up here to this field list section, it has tasks and resources. We're currently on the tasks tab. We want to go over to the resources tab. So here we are in resources, and notice that instead of the tasks, now we have all of our resources listed in the table with their start and finish dates. Okay. So we're going to use the scroll box at the right of the field list, navigate down until the work fields are visible, and then select the expand button next to work. So we've got cost, we've got date, and we want to go down to work. So I just scrolled that date one shut, and now I'm going to open up the work one. And we want to scroll down to remaining work. So we've got to go down and find the one that says remaining work and then check that box. Okay, so now it's added that column of remaining work to our table. And in the sort box, down here at the bottom, it has no sort currently. So these are kind of just going in the order that they are in our resource sheet. It's probably easier for somebody who's reading this report to look at them in alphabetical order. So we're going to go ahead and use the drop down and do it by name. And now we've got everybody's name and our resources like bottled water in there in alphabetical order, just so it's easier to scan through. So this is quite a long report. If we look at it, we're scrolling down, we've got all those resources in here, and we can actually go up here in the top and see where our page breaks would lie. Where our page breaks would lie. There they are. And you can see kind of where those page breaks are. So this is, it's not intuitive as far as finding the edges of the pages. You would think that, oh, this is going to print on the page the correct way. It might not. So for example, if we go to File and go to Print and look at our print preview over here, it's not good, right? We wouldn't ever give this to our boss, right? First of all, we want this to be a portrait orientation for one thing. And even when we do that, it's still messed up. So this is a quirk of Project. Down here, you can see that it says 1 of 4, which means there's 4 pages like this. Down here at the lower right-hand corner, there's this multiple pages button. We could press that to see how it's going to print. And what a silly way to print a report, right? So what we are going to do is we're actually going to go back to our remaining work report sort of interface here. And we're just going to, by hand, center these on the page and kind of move them around. So I'm just taking that title area and moving that. And then I'm going to take my table and center it on that title area there, and keeping in mind that page break information over here. We're going to make sure that we're on portrait orientation. And now when we go back to print, we're going to have much better luck. So this is probably the quirkiest thing about printing reports in Project. It's a little bit different. It doesn't automatically format things in a logical way like maybe Microsoft Word would. It's probably closer to Project and how you have to manipulate that sometimes. So now we've got 2 pages here, and we can just scroll down and we can see that it's going to go onto 2 pages. Notice it doesn't really have margins. If we wanted to add those, we would just use our page setup like we did before and do that. Something else that you could do here, and this is not in the book, but you could go back here and you could probably select this entire table and right click and change the font size, as it's at like 18 right now, which is a little large. So we could probably bring it down to something like a 14, and that might make it look a little bit better too. So you can, you kind of have to make it the way that you want it, in a way that's a little bit different from what you might be used to. So I'm going to go back to print. And now it looks much better. He's printing on 2 pages. It's still a little bit weird up there, but we're just going to leave it for now. And then I'm just going to print it to PDF. And save it. Okay. So there we go. We just finished that section ending on page 205. So at the bottom of page 205, we have reporting project status, reporting project variance with a stoplight view. And so this is a little bit different because we're not going to be using our report section to create this report. We're actually going to be using our task sheet. So we're going to go to view for this one. And we are going to go find our task sheet. So we've got to go down to more views and find task sheet. Isn't it crazy how we haven't even looked at all of these different views yet in project? I find it amazing. Okay, so task sheet is basically the left-hand side of your Gantt chart. It's like a Gantt chart minus that schedule over on the right-hand side. So don't be too weirded out by oh my gosh, another view. And we want to make sure that our cost tables are showing. So we're going to go to in the view section, go to this tables button and go down to cost. I had mine at the variance, but I want it to be at cost. Just going to scooch these over here so we have enough room for all these. There we go. And you can see that our cost information is basically showing. So let's say we were reporting to our stakeholders on the current costs of the project, any budget overruns that we're experiencing. This is a report that we would use from this task sheet. So it's not from the report tab that we're going to do for that, because it's got all this detailed information for all of these different scenes. I would also say that you're going to want to think about exactly what you're going to want showing. I had, scene 1 scrolled shut, pre-production scrolled shut. You have to kind of decide what is all important that you want to show on it, especially if for, pre-production, we're basically under budget. So I don't know how important it would be to show that area. So you just have to kind of think through it critically and decide what you want to show people and make sure everything is being displayed properly. Okay, so we've got our cost information here on our task sheet. Now we're going to create this spotlight view, which is actually kind of cool. It's kind of complicated, but just try to stick with me here. So we're going to go to the project tab and go to custom fields. So this is going to, if you think of fixed cost, total cost, baseline, variance, those are all fields that are built into project. We're going to create a custom field now that is going to show what we call a stoplight report, which means green, amber, red. So green meaning things are going great, amber meaning things could get dicey, red meaning we're way over budget, okay? And we're going to use this custom fields tool to do that. So click open custom fields. And at the field level up here, it's task, resource, or type up here. And we are going to go to, we're going to make sure task is still clicked, and we're going to go to number over here. And you can see that there's one called over budget, number 3. Okay, so this is the field that we are going to be entering into this table that we're showing in our task sheet. Okay. So what is this over budget number 3? Well, if we go through it here, it's got some custom attributes, and there is a formula that has been applied here. So Excel wizards of the world, this probably looks logical to you. If cost is greater than 0, and if baseline cost is 1.2 of that, so basically if you're 20% over, if baseline cost is 10, 20, or 30. So it's basically using this formula to determine if-then scenarios for if the cost is below 10%, if the cost is 20% or below, or if the cost is like 30% or above or something like that. And we're going to apply that green, amber, red based on those 10, 20, and 30% marks for how much over we are from our baseline, basically. So you don't have to do anything here. Just know that this is where the formulas are held. And if you are a formula wizard in Excel land, you could probably do some pretty cool stuff in here. I am not that cool. Okay, so we're going to cancel out of that, but we're going to make sure that that formula is checked over here. And then the next section down here says calculation for task and group summary rows. None is toggled on mine. We want it to use the formula. That formula that we just looked at, we want to use it. Okay, so we want to make sure that we toggle use formula on. And I don't think that step is in the book. So if you tried to go through it and do it on your own, that might have been a little bit tricky because I don't think it says specifically to toggle that on. Okay, and then calculation for assignment rows, I think we're going to leave that there. And then values to display. You could have the data show, or you can use graphical indicators, and this is what we are going to use. So that's already toggled on, but if you click that, it shows you what is going to be shown. So if the over budget equals 10%, we're going to show a green smiley face. If the over budget equals 20% based on the formula, we're going to show the mediumly happy yellow face. And if the test for over budget is 30%, then we are going to show the frowny red face. Okay, so we want to make sure that that looks like that. What's kind of cool is like if you go in these image cells and hit the drop down, there's all sorts of things that you can use here. So we could totally switch this out to just like green diamond, amber diamond, red diamond. I'm going to try that, but you can leave yours at smiley faces if you want to, and I'm going to click OK. Okay, so now we've done all of that, and we are just going to click OK to get out of here. And now we've got to make a space for this custom field that we made on our task usage sheet. All we're going to do is go to this first fixed cost column, and we are going to right click it and go to insert column. And in type column name, we are going to do over budget number 3, which was that custom field that we created. And so now you can see that those little graphical symbols are displaying, depending on what that value is, calculated based on the baseline, variance, actual, and remaining data for our tasks. So you can see at a glance that we've got, we were good here. Scene 1 set up a rehearsal. We were on budget. We went a little over on the vocal recording. We went over on the video shoot. Scene 2, we went way over on the rehearsal and the vocal recording, but everything else was good. And you can kind of just glance down the page and see where you're at. Now, we haven't completed scene 3 and 4. So of course we're on budget for those, and those are going to show green until something changes in the actuals here to make that information change. So that is that stoplight report. So if we actually want to print this Mamma Jam out for somebody, again, you would want to think about we didn't even touch post-production yet. Do I really want to show all that? Maybe I want to scroll that closed. Maybe pre-production, because it was all green, we don't need to show that. And we're just showing the scene 1 and 2. We haven't done scene 4 yet, so maybe we want to scroll those complete. And then we would just go File to Print. And again, it says 1 of 3, so we have 3 pages. You can press the little multiple pages button to see how they all would print out together. And you'd be like, woof, that is really big. Let's go back and make sure that this is tucked over as much as possible. Maybe we don't need the entire title for over budget to be in there. And go back and see if that condenses it a little bit. Maybe we want to change to landscape orientation so we can fit more on a page. And maybe we want to hit our page setup as well. Go to page and see if we can fit to 1 page wide by 1 page tall. Another thing that I like to do is adjust the paper size. So if you have the availability to use legal size paper, which is that 8.5 by 14, is that right? Paper, that can fit a lot more on a page too. So now we've got it down to 1 page and it's legible, and we can kind of see these 3 scenes and, you know, where we were over budget or under budget, just based on making those different changes and adjustments. There's quite a bit of margin on this particular one as well. So if I wanted it to appear larger, I could go to the margins and knock these down to maybe 0.4 on each side or something like that. And hopefully that would kind of increase that space that would be available to kind of make it a little bit bigger too. So that's another way to adjust it. So I'm just going to print that. Do my over budget stoplight. Print that as a PDF. Okay. Okay, so we went up to the bottom of page 207, that last exercise, and now we're going to do using visual reports. And this is actually, when you hear visual reports, think Excel. It's basically going to create a report directly from Project that's an Excel type report. It's basically puts it into an Excel spreadsheet. So, which obviously not everybody in your organization is going to have Microsoft Project, but probably everybody's going to have Excel. So this is a quick way to like export a certain set of data into that, and you know, your old friends, the pivot chart and the pivot table, are going to be in play here. So God bless us all. Okay, so let's go to the report tab and go to these visual reports. So it's right over here, and notice it's under like the heading of export, because that's what you're really doing, is creating an Excel version of something. So select the visual reports button and you get the create report dialog box. Or do you? There it is. Okay, and you've got templates basically for, do you want to just see all the Microsoft Excel ones? Do you want to see Visio, which I don't even know how to use, so I'm going to undo that one. And then you can see like some basic templates that are available in Excel on here. It's going to give you a little preview of the report. And you want to select the level of usage data to include in the report, which is basically what time scale do you want to use. Do you want to go day to day? Do you want to go week to week on here? We are going to be using the cash flow report, which is kind of midway down on our list of Excel reports that are available. And this is what it's supposed to look like. You know, there's other ones out here. There's the budget cost report, budget work report, earn value over time report, baseline cost report, things like that. But we're going to use the cash flow. Some of these topics may look similar to some of the project-only reports that we explored earlier. But for this case, just for our example, we're going to use the cash flow report, and we are going to go down here and click months. We're going to use months in this report. And then we're going to go ahead and click the view button. This is actually going to open an Excel spreadsheet. It's going to take a second. Okay, and we get a little something that looks like this. Super dumb report, right? Cash flow report. Here's the total, and here's the cumulative cost. It's not telling us a lot right now, and that is because this report tab here is actually a pivot chart, and you can see that chart 1 is the tab that's open, and we actually are going to have to go into this task usage, which is the data information, and do some adjustments here in our little pivot table fields to make this more useful. So go ahead and do that, and in our pivot table field list over here on the right hand side, we want to find the time field. So we are going to go down all the way to the bottom, and then there's the time right here, and we are going to take that monthly calendar and drag it into the rows box. Okay, so the rows box down here now has monthly calendar in it, and it should look similar to page 209. Now we've got to, it's still not showing us our months, but that's because all of 2016 is kind of wrapped into this little field here. So we're just going to click that plus button, and now we're going to get all the cost data per month, which is what we really want there. So that was step 7 on page 209. So now that it looks like that, we can go back to our chart 1, and now we can see something that's actually somewhat useful, which is our cost per month basically, and then the cumulative cost over time that is being shown. So that is how we would do that Don-Funk cash flow. So now, because this is an Excel document, you don't have to print it as a PDF. You can actually just file, save as, and then save it as our Don-Funk cash flow for yourself. And there we go. And so now you can, send that out around the company, and people will be able to open it and manipulate it and things like that, but the data will all be there. So you can see where that would be really helpful, because who knows how to use Project besides you and me? Not many people, right? Okay, so customizing and printing a Gantt chart view. This is our last section starting on page 211. And like I said before, this is pretty darn useful. We're going to close this little Excel spreadsheet. We don't need him anymore. Close this visual reports. And we are going to go back to our Gantt chart view for our project. Now I just got to scroll up here. And of course I scrolled a bunch of things shut because that's all I wanted to see on here. Okay, so printing a Gantt chart is pretty tough because the thing is, it's a very lengthwise amount of data when you think about it. We've got all this stuff over here, and then we've got our whole schedule over here. So it kind of pays, before you even press print, to think about what do you want to actually display on your printout. Do you want all the pre-production tasks showing and all of the schedule data over in here on the right showing, or do you not really need that stuff? So you just have to kind of think through what you actually want to show, because space is going to be at a premium with this stuff. So let's say, for example's sake, that I didn't really care about these pre-production tasks. They've been over and done with for a couple months now, so we know that it's done. If I wanted to scroll those shut, then I would also go here and navigate on the right hand side to the beginning maybe of the production tasks, so that those are showing as close as possible to the left hand side of the page. I would also want to think about do I really need the resource names to show here if they're all going to be here? And I could adjust this middle bar over to just show the information that I want to show. Another thing to think about is tables. Do you want to show the cost information on here before you print it? Because you can absolutely change that to the cost information if that's more useful for whatever purpose you have for printing this out. But maybe you don't need that. Maybe you just want to have the entry information on there. So you kind of have to think through those things first critically. Okay, let's check it out. File to print. And here we are. And lo and behold, when we go to our multiple pages, it is 3 rows, 1, 2, 3 by 3, 3 rows, 1, 2, 3 by 3 columns, 1, 2, 3, for a total of 9 pages, which is a lot. But this is going to give us some information that is useful to us. So we can see on here is that the bulk of our sort of spreadsheet of tasks information would fit on 2 pages. We're only going over by 1 in my case, just because of what I scrolled open and shut. And then these are basically blank. So if I want to be as judicious about paper use as I can be, I can do some adjustments here and kind of figure out how to change this up a little bit so that it fits on 1 page. The other thing to take into consideration is that we have a legend on the Gantt chart view as well. So sorry, I'm just trying to orient myself back to the book. So we're on page 212. Basically, I already went and showed you the multiple pages and how it shows 3 rows and 3 columns. Now we're going to go to this 1-page view, and it kind of just shows you the first page basically, or 1 page at a time. And when you're in this view, there's these up and down buttons, so you can show the next one down and the next one to the right based on that rows and columns view. So something to keep in mind what that does. We are going to do the page setup hyperlink and see if we can add some more information on here. So we have available to us header and footer data for our Gantt chart printout. So we're going to go to the header tab and add some more information here. We want to add the company name to the header that prints on each page. There's 3 alignment tabs. There's the left, the center, and the right. And we are going to start in the center one. And down here, we've got, in general, we can actually put a bunch of fields in there so that we don't have to type it. We can just click company name and click add, and it's going to put that in there. The company that this project has originated from is Wiley Press, so it shows up here in the preview, but it shows like the field name basically down here in the bottom. Let's check out the legend, because that takes up a lot of room on each page. So, and I'm just gonna, you can see the legend view. It's got a lot of information on it, and we'll look at it in a second. But right now the legend is set to display on every page, which takes up some of your real estate too. So you can actually just create a legend page and do it separately, or you can have it on every page, or you can have it on none as well. So it just kind of depends on your audience as far as, do they understand what they're looking at as far as milestone tasks and tasks that have been completed or not completed and things like that. So whether they need a legend or not. And then there's this sort of marginal information that we can put in with the legend. So on the left tab, Microsoft Project already has project, and which includes the project title, Don Font music video, and the current date on there. So if we wanted to add additional information on the right, we can add start, as far as adding the start date, and just hit project start date and add that right there. And then if we go down a row, we can do the duration. Now that duration is going to be in the project fields drop down. So I just want to find that and find, it's called scheduled duration. So phew, there's like a million things you can add in here. There it is, scheduled duration. Woof. And click add. So it'll automatically populate that, and it gives you again that little preview, how many days that it's scheduled for. And then there's also a width button, so you can control the size of the legend area as well. So it was originally at 2 inches, we're going to change it to 3 inches, and then we're going to click OK. If we go back, so now we can see like our first page here, it's got this information, and then this is this huge legend that appears on every page. My preference is to not display the legend, but for our purposes in this exercise, it's important that you know where it is. But notice what's happened though, is that our left information and our right information are kind of running into each other because of the width of this particular area. So if you go back actually to that legend, and you go to right and you just put an extra space there, like hit a return and click OK. It'll kind of offset those from each other. So some other helpful things for printing out a Gantt chart and not using so much paper is you can move the legend just to one page on its own. You can also adjust the margins, and sometimes that'll help you just kind of get to that next page. So I encourage you to do that in your page setup. And the other thing to do is, again, if you can use, if you have legal paper in your printer available to you, that's really helpful as well, because it just, the width of it really helps you kind of get things on the next view. So if I use the legal paper and I feel like I can get this to 2 pages wide by 2 pages tall or something like that, I may be able to cut down how much printer paper I am using. And there, it's adjusted a little bit there. So now I've got 2 rows and 2 columns. So all kind of hints and tricks that you can use to just try to make it more suitable and print out in a little more proper way as a Gantt chart. And of course, you could just go ahead and click print, and I'm going to save this as a PDF, presumably to give to somebody. If you wanted to, especially if you were printing it as a PDF, you could use kind of whatever paper size you want, which includes like tabloid, which is huge paper, and that might help you reduce the number of sheets that it would go on as well. So just some things to think about. I'm going to put mine back on legal and click print. So there you go. All right, and that is the end of lesson 10 from our book. So that should kind of get you started understanding a little bit about like the different quirks of how to print in Microsoft Project, and also like what useful reports there are out there. But then, of course, I just want to reiterate, all those things have to kind of be in place and done correctly first, or else you're not going to get good reporting information. So you have to make sure that you are tracking completion to an appropriate date. You have to make sure that you are setting your status date, and make sure that you are adjusting any actuals as far as resources that have worked more hours or less hours than they were intended to work, or additional material resources that you used. I didn't go over cost resources with that because of course you apply those at the time, so you would just do that in you would do that the same way as well. Okay, so that is that, and moving on to, you have project 10-1, 10-2, and 10-3 for homework. And then also the circling back exercises on page 221 through 223. So let's go to the Blackboard shell there. So for circling back, it says continue through all 3 sections. So basically you are going to start with the RFP Bank software schedule data file, and you're going to go through project 1, which is going to be things from previous chapters, adding deadlines, adding some different resource information like overtime costs and things like that, and adding those in there. And then when you get to part 2, formatting and printing the project plan, the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 are all like doing this custom Gantt chart thing, and just don't bother with it. What I do want you to do is starting on step 11, which says right here, step 11 to 18, and print it to PDF. So it's going to have you enter some information like header, company name, legend information, start date information in there, just like we just went over when we printed a Gantt chart. And then go ahead and, instead of printing, print to PDF, and make sure that you save that PDF. And then once you go through project 3, tracking the project plan, and fill out all of that stuff, you submit your updated RFP bank software tracked project document and that PDF that you quote unquote printed at the end of part 2. So I hope that's not too confusing. I'm just basically not making you do steps 2 through 10 on the second part, and printing to PDF so that I can see it. And of course we have a concept quiz this week as well. So I would encourage you to kind of go through. I don't have a Kahoot for you, I'm sorry, but I would encourage you to go through the knowledge assessment questions in project reporting, and those are going to be a lot of the practice questions I took right from there. And it's a pretty simple quiz this week with an extra credit opportunity as well. So let me know if you have any questions on anything from this week. And again, feel free to go ahead and look at the final project, which is going to be due on the 14th. But don't forget that this class just goes into that third week, or that second week, and whatever you want to say, third. It's the last class is 2 weeks from today. So we still have class next week, and I hope to go over that project, final project for you in detail. So that clear what is expected for that, and then you'll have the rest of the time to complete it. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. Take care.